Hey, are you a full grown adult that still sometimes feels pressured or overwhelmed by the expectations of your parents or your family? Yeah, me too. Welcome back. I'm Ed Woodstock, and today's meditation is about managing parental expectations as an adult. But before we begin, let's all share a deep, grounding breath. Inhaling slowly through the nose, filling the belly. Fill the chest. Hold. 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. So you may have noticed that babies cry. And they cry because they simply don't have the language to communicate their needs. So when you were a baby and you were hungry, or you needed to feel safe or loved, or you wanted to be held, or you had a wet diaper, or you wanted to feel that warmth, that skin-to-skin contact, or to feel the heartbeat of your mother, you would cry out because you needed to feel something, to feel connected, to feel safe, to feel loved, to feel nourished. And then as we get a bit older, we learn how to feed ourselves and protect ourselves, but yet we still communicate sometimes when we feel unloved, when we feel unsafe, when we feel afraid. And as we get older still, we want to find a sense of belonging. We want to find a sense of acceptance, approval, and connection to the people around us. So you may notice that your communication style changes as you become a young person and come into adulthood. And you may have even noticed that some people communicate by fulfilling the expectations of their parents. You may have been one that was an overachiever and you got good grades, or you got awards for dancing or for sports. And so you got some attention positively that way. But you may have also noticed that other people, they act out negatively. That you yourself, or you may know people that would get in trouble a lot, misbehave. And essentially the communication is the same thing. And the positive child, you may have been taught to do something positive or athletic or creative to receive love, validation, and approval. But if you didn't have that support that taught you positive or creative pathways to expressing yourself, you may have noticed that you would act out in a troubled kind of way. And you may have been misbehaving, or you may have been getting bad grades, or getting in trouble and getting detention. And that was a way of receiving some attention. And so either way, we're going to try to find a way to communicate what it is we want and need, sometimes positively, sometimes negatively. And so as we get older, we may realize that the way that we communicate getting our needs met are sometimes healthy and sometimes unhealthy. And where the way that we express ourselves is unhealthy, we can recognize it has a toxic and destructive sense in our lives. It may be something that we internalize because we're afraid that we can't ask for something, because maybe in the past, if you did ask for something, you were punished for it. So you may internalize that. Or if you feel like you've expressed your needs in the past and they were met with contempt or criticism, or you were made fun of, you may just repress that and not want to feel what it feels like to want something or need something and feel like it's not being met. You might even feel as if no one cares about your needs, or no one cares about how you feel. Or you may feel like you don't belong to anybody, or that no one cares about whether you are nourished, or whether you receive affection, or whether you feel like you belong to somebody or to something. And so as adults, it's our responsibility to recognize how the patterns of communication that we developed as babies, and then as children, and then as young adults, either are currently serving us or not serving us. And even as adults, if there was an unhealthy dynamic between us and our parents, or us and our siblings, those dynamics can be reinforced, because a lot of the times people stay in that structure of feeling like, well, I'm a full-grown adult, yet I have a parent that makes me feel like I'm a child. Or I'm a full-grown adult and I have older siblings that make me feel like I'm still a child. And so it's going to be up to us to recognize the patterns of communication and of expressing our needs that are healthy or unhealthy. And so if we can start to manage these expectations and to understand ourselves on a better level, we can start to understand how we have the power to change the communication style. We have the ability to recognize what our needs are, and we have the ability to choose how we communicate those needs. So one of the things we can do when we're trying to manage the expectations of others that are close to us in the family is to set healthy boundaries. And not only is it up to us to recognize where we need to maybe take certain time and energy back from ourselves, but you can also recognize that it's your responsibility to enforce the boundary. The other people are not going to enforce the boundary, because when someone else benefits from an unhealthy boundary, they're not going to want it to change. So if you recognize that the boundary needs to be set, it's going to be up to you to enforce it, because the other people, they liked the boundary the way that it was, but it didn't serve you. So be prepared if you set a boundary that the other people that benefit from the old behavior may not like the new boundary you set. So it's up to you to enforce it. So when we recognize that, we can also look at our set of values. There may be values that were imposed on us. You may have parents or a family that expected you to go into a certain profession and become a doctor or a lawyer, or you may notice expectations of people to want you to maybe have a family, or to become a professional, or to do certain things with your life, to act and behave a certain way. And if your values are different, let's say your values are freedom, creativity, self-reliance, self-expression, travel, adventure, you can simply see that if you identify your values and they're not in alignment with the values that your caregivers, your parents, your family have for you, it's going to create conflict. So in that case, what you can do is you can practice radical acceptance. Not only radical acceptance of yourself, but radical acceptance of others. So you can identify your values, accept, embrace, and love yourself for the set of values you choose to hold up as important to you. And then to accept others whose maybe expectations of you don't align with your values. That's okay. It's really okay if your values and the values that others expect of you do not align. And if you really value that person's relationship, you might want to sit down and have a conversation with them. You might want to tell them that you're setting boundaries, that you're really bringing into focus your values, and that you're learning to accept the values that you have, and you're going to communicate these values to other people so that they can kind of have a deeper understanding of you. And that's an opportunity for them to give you the gift of accepting you as you are. So having a conversation may seem difficult, especially if we've had trouble in the past communicating our needs because we've been punished or ridiculed or made to feel unsafe when we've communicated our needs. It really does take the ability to step out of the comfort zone and sometimes have a difficult conversation to communicate boundaries and values to other people. And then accept them. However they respond to what you communicate, accept them as they are. When you get to the point where you recognize that you no longer need a person to feed you, to protect you, to nourish you, to love you, or accept you, that you can offer yourself the love, the nourishment, and the acceptance that you're looking for from other people. This allows you to become more confident and take greater ownership over your life, because the expectations that your parents have kind of set the tone for the way other people relate to you. And so if you resolve this issue at the root level, if you are able to understand that these needs and the expression of these needs came as an infant or as a young person who was learning to develop communication skills, you now have the ability to recognize that those communication skills don't serve you anymore. And you can develop new and healthy communication skills to communicate your needs in a healthy and loving way. And this will bring you confidence, where you can take ownership over your life and recognize that you have the ability to change the way that you feel about what you need, where you derive those needs from, and how you communicate and express those needs to other people in your life. It may even mean that you eliminate certain relationships with people who don't understand you, and maybe open yourself up to relationships with other people who understand you more deeply. And in that way, we can say thank you. We can say thank you to the people in our lives who maybe in some ways, intentionally or unintentionally, caused us to feel like we were less than, or we needed their approval or validation. Because through that process of our parents trying to maybe control or own us or manipulate us or to force us or pressure us to become something, we recognize that our parents did so from a place of doing the best they could with what they had, where they were at. Now, this doesn't dismiss the possibility that you may have a parent that was really unhealthy and really was not doing the best they could with what they had, and may have been abusive, may have not really given you the environment or the relationship you needed to thrive and to feel safe and healthy. So you can decide whether you want to offer forgiveness or whether you still need to work through some of the issues before you can get to that point. And you don't need to rush it. This is a lifelong process. I'm almost 50 years old and I'm still dealing with the dynamic of certain expectations that parents and family have over me. And so it is a lifelong process of learning to communicate with ourselves and each other in a healthier way. And so as we understand more deeply the need to communicate what it is we do need to other people, when we recognize our old patterns of communication and need are maybe they need to be revised, they need to be upgraded to a new 2.0 version of our needs and how we communicate them, it allows us to be more gentle and compassionate with ourselves. And when we start to become more gentle and compassionate and understanding of ourselves, that's when this relationship with ourselves really starts to deepen and take hold. And when we develop this deep relationship with ourselves, you will start to feel that the love, affection, nourishment, validation, approval, belonging, all these things that we seek from others, they were inside of us the whole time. They were always there. And it actually took the suffering by way of our parents and other people in society expecting us to be a certain way for us to feel uncomfortable in our skin by contorting ourselves, trying to fit into other people's ideas of how we should be, to break out of that and say, no, I no longer want to be that. I'm setting a boundary. You don't have control. My values are different than yours. I accept you as you are, but I accept myself as I am. And I'm taking ownership over my life. And that's a real power move that you can use to outgrow some of the things that have been holding you back. And as you go through this process, as you breathe deeply, as you connect more deeply with yourself,